Hey guys, welcome again. If you were just over at Facebook, then I'll say hey for a second time for the evening. But if not, welcome either way to Playground Sessions YouTube channel. I'm Phil, and thank you guys for joining me for another live lesson. I'm actually really excited today because I mean it when I say I had fun last month. I did. Getting into the theory is important, and you guys showed up each week, and so that's great. It was good news. But I'm excited because this month we're going to get back in a little bit more into playing. Okay, theory is a tool to help our playing, no doubt. But it can be removed from playing when you're working on it in the moment. What we're going to be talking about this month, because you guys voted on it last week, is expression. Okay, we're going to be talking about that today, and I'm going to get into what that means. But first, I want to do a little housekeeping. I want to check in with you guys, and I want to see how the 30-day challenge has been going. Has anybody been working on the 30-day challenge? I know last week people were checking it out. And I'll actually see some chats right now. I see Sarah Pickles writing about today's practice. And so what I want to do is ask you guys to write in just a status update for me. If you don't have any questions about the 30-day challenge, just let me know how it's going. It's been really exciting for us on the Playground team to watch everyone progress and share their progress. If you have some specific questions for me, I believe today was day 22. We're getting close, you guys. We're about a week left. If you have any questions for me about what you're working on, doesn't have to be about day 22, hit me, all right? And what I want to do now is talk about expression. I'm going to set this up, and then I'm going to come back to the chat and see if there's some questions that I can answer about the challenge, okay? So today is all about, this month is all about expression. And similarly to how we did this last month, we have an umbrella theme for the month, and then I'm going to get in there each week and deliver something within that umbrella to you guys. Last month we did Theory 101, and we hit 4 different kind of pillars of theory. We're going to do the same thing here with expression. I think one of the main parts of expression, well, first of all, let's define expression. Everyone knows what that word means if you use it in your day-to-day life, but here in music, what we talk about, what we mean when we talk about expression is expressing sort of a human quality in the music, and it can be referred to in a couple of different ways. People will say, breathe life into the music. Or people will say, you're playing too stiff or too metronomic or too whatever. You got to relax and get some variety in there and just breathe some life into it. I know it sounds very... what's the word? It doesn't seem as formulaic or grounded in sort of fact like theory does, right? Theory was all about this equals that and this means that. When we're talking about expression, it's kind of a bit subjective. It lets the performer kind of put his or her own touch in there, and that therefore it can make each performance or each performer more unique. And so we really get into some great stuff when we talk about expression. I think there's a couple of core elements to playing expressively. One would be dynamics. We got to talk about, you got to have control over your dynamic range, and ideally you have a wide dynamic range. When I talk about dynamics, I mean basically the volume at which you're playing your notes and the contrast between different phrases and their volumes, okay? That's dynamics. And so when I say you want to have a wide dynamic range, what I mean is you want to have the skills and the touch to be able to play very quietly or very loudly and everything in between. That's one pillar of expression, dynamics. And guess what? That's what today's lesson is all about, okay? But allow me to give a preview here a bit of the rest of this month. So we'll talk about dynamics today. And of course, there's crossover between these lessons, but later in the month, we're going to be talking about something called rubato, which is a sort of a way to describe playing something instead of an even timing to sort of push and pull the tempo, again, to simulate breathing, if you think about it. It's sort of like inhaling and exhaling. I'll give you a quick example of this with a C major scale. Here's a sort of a non-expressive way to play it, okay? I'm going to play it with the same volume or dynamics, and I'm not going to play with rubato. I'm not going to push and pull the tempo. And then I'll show you what it's like when I do. Now let me play it with some expression here. It's one way to do it, or I could do this. You notice sometimes I'm speeding up and sometimes I'm slowing down. Now, it's funny because when we're talking about rookie level stuff, typically we say you got to play even timing. We talk about note durations, how long you're supposed to hold stuff, and how your counts have to be even. Now, this is true. We want to be able to play the music accurately with the accurate rhythms and all of that. But only then, when you have control over that stuff and you've learned it and you've got it in your hands, so to speak, then the next step is to work on expressing yourself through that piece. And that's when you can really do some of the stuff we're talking about here. We're also going to be talking about things like phrasing. How do you look at the music in front of you and see what the larger phrase is? Maybe it's a melodic phrase or something else. And then how do you bring that to life and showcase that phrase in a way using expression and things like dynamics, also articulation, connecting notes in a phrase, things like that. There's some crossover with all of that. So it's going to be an exciting month, and we're going to get back really to the core of playing. That's what expression is all about here, adding your own sort of expressive touch to your playing, okay? It's going to be an exciting month, and I was really glad to see you guys voted on that one. So real quick, I want to go back to the chat, and I want to see if there's any 30-day challenge stuff going on. And I just want to say, hey, Sarah Pickles showed up early. Sarah Pickles, you win a free song credit because you show up every week. I know a lot of you guys do, but Sarah, because I'm feeling generous today, you were our first chatter. You got a free song credit. Congratulations, Sarah. Terry, how are you? You were hopping back and forth. Do you guys like when I go do the Facebook preview? I think I'm sitting here anyways. I think it's nice to pop in and say, don't forget about YouTube. Do you like that? Does it help you remember these YouTube lessons, or is it confusing? Let me know in the chat. Byron Burt, good evening, my friend. Lynn Carton, how you doing? Chad Miller, what's up? Got the crew in the house. Carlos Lopez, hey y'all. Team Dixon, hi. Is this a whole team or is this just one person? David Key, what up? Oh, here we go. Sarah says, I have a silly question. What's the difference between playing softly and playing deliberately? Interesting question. I'll attempt to answer that. I would say that you can play softly, deliberately, or you could play softly, not deliberately, which might mean you're kind of making something up and you don't really care. Or you could play loudly and deliberately. So I think this is an interesting question because it's a tough thing to compare because we're talking about two different things here. I want to ask you actually to clarify, Sarah, because I think the way you've worded the question, you can play something deliberately or not and then have different dynamics, and they don't really affect each other. So I want to make sure I'm understanding your question right. Okay, Pilot's Mother, great name, says, I love the 30-day challenge. Great news. That's awesome. Will you do more challenges? Great question. Yes, we will. We were already talking internally about what is a follow-up course, but I will say that it's not going to come right at, like on day 31 of this challenge, right? We need to have some time to learn from this challenge and to really go through all of your feedback and make sure that the next course we offer has improved, right? This is the first time we've done this 30-day challenge type thing. So I promise you we will do more. And I also promise you we will do some that are geared for more advanced players, intermediate and advanced level players. But please be patient as we are still a small team and we have a lot of stuff we're trying to produce for you guys. So we're excited that we are going to be doing more challenges. Just stay tuned for when. Ariel, can you introduce, oh, I lost it. Where'd it go? Ariel says, can you introduce the 30-day challenge? Okay, so for those who don't know, thank you, Ariel. Maybe some of you are not members in our interactive app yet. And first I should say, if it's not in the link below or in the description below, I'll have Aiden or Andrew post it in the description and in the chat. But we're doing a free trial right now for the app, and it's just for YouTubers. So it's like playgroundsessions.com/YouTube-free-trial. So first of all, any of you YouTubers out here that are not app members, check out that free trial. Within the app, we have a boot camp tour, we have songs, we have courses, and within the courses tab, we have a course called the 30-Day Challenge. This is for anyone that's an app member. You go in, and there's a new piece of content every day with a video from me every day. Right now, we're on day 22. We're doing it live right now. Tomorrow's another one, day 23. And what we've done is we've taken the entertainer. Okay, and that's actually a bit of the actual arrangement, by the way. We've taken a rookie level arrangement of the entertainer and we've split it across 30 days. So you're literally starting with just this on day 1. And by the end of the 30 days, you're playing the whole arrangement. So that's what it is. We're trying this thing to see if it helps rookie players establish a regular practice routine. Can you show up every day for 30 days? If so, you will see progress. Okay, that's kind of the gist of this. And I hope you'll check it out, Ariel. It's pretty cool. Take advantage of that free trial. The free trial happens to last for 30 days, you guys. So in addition to whatever else in the app that you want to check out, you can actually do the 30-day challenge with your free trial. Byron Burt says, up to date on the 30-day challenge. Training has helped me to step through the final pieces of music in the rookie boot camp on last lesson, 93. About to graduate. Byron, hey, man. That's awesome. Graduating out of a tour feels so good. And it takes a while, right? There's a lot of lessons in there. So well done. And that's interesting to know that within the 30-day challenge, you were learning some skills that actually come later in the rookie boot camp. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's keep it moving. David Key, 30-day challenge, like the in-depth tutorial idea. Hope you're going to do some more. Yes. So, David, one of the things we've tried new here is really breaking it down every day. Now, for you app members that have been members for a while, you may already know in our song store, we don't typically release video with song stuff, and that's mostly due to rights restrictions at the moment. But we're working on that as well. Stay tuned on some news for that. But we don't typically break down stuff like that in the song store. We think of the boot camp area as the space where you learn the tools, and then you go to the song store and you apply those tools. And we were seeing a bit of a disconnect when we look at all the data, if I'm honest with you guys. And we were seeing that not many people were seeing the amount of success that we wanted them to see in the songs store area. Okay? And so part of this was an attempt to see what happens if we really break down the song in more detail, with video, all that stuff, okay? Glad to see that you're liking the breakdown. Does anyone want to talk about expression? Wait, I got to give Mark Hopewell a shout out. He says, thank goodness for playground sessions. Hello to all from Mark in the UK. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us. Do you know Stu, by the way? He's another UKer. Okay, I think we should get into this lesson, guys. I'm going to come back to the chat in just a bit, I promise. But let's get started on dynamics, okay? That's going to be our first pillar of expression. And dynamics are, as I mentioned up front, dynamics are a way for us to refer to the volume at which we're playing, the loudness or the softness. And many of you who are just starting out at the piano may not even know that you can intentionally play at different volumes. And Sarah, maybe that's what you were asking up front. But what dynamics, when we talk about dynamics, we're talking about volume, but we're really talking about the range of different volumes. So if I have good dynamics, or if Chris Vance, he's a good player, really great dynamics. What I mean by that is they have a wide range. They can play loudly, but they can also play very quietly and intentionally play in the in-between. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about right now. What I want to do is cover the range of dynamics from arguably the most common 6 different designations. And there are more on the outsides of that, but we're going to start just with that today. So let's take a look at that. What I want to do is first introduce the quietest dynamic marking that you'll see in notation, and then we're going to work our way up through the loudest. Let's get started with pianissimo. All right, now some of you may know some of these terms already, but I'm going to show you the symbol, I'm going to define it, and then I'll play a little example, okay? And on screen, you can actually see the whole range right now, so that's what we're going to be covering. Starting with pianissimo, okay? Let me just generally first define a few terms for you guys. Well, actually, let me wait until we get to those terms. We'll start with pianissimo, and you can see that on screen that means very quiet, okay? This is, you might actually see 3 Ps or 4 Ps in some music, and that's honestly like hard to play that quietly. It's almost like you aren't supposed to make a sound. But you see that more rarely. So today we're going to put our lowest, quietest volume at pianissimo. I want you to think about that as just very quiet, okay? We can imagine a quiet volume, and it takes some skill to really like resist playing too loud. And then from here, we actually want to quiet it down more. Whew, it's hard, you guys. That's pianissimo. I want you to think for now that pianissimo, if you ever see that in music, 2 Ps there in the music, that just means play as quiet as you can, okay, for now. Now, let's move on to the next symbol that we see, which is just 1 P. That stands for piano. Now, that's the term I wanted to define because we all know what a piano is. This is a keyboard, and some of you actually I know have acoustic pianos at home. Well, this does not mean your instrument. This means quiet. And in fact, the definition of the word piano here means quiet. Even when we refer to our instruments, when we say that's my piano, we're actually, whether we know it or not, we're shorthand referring to it by a shorthand name. When pianos were invented in the way that we know them today, they were actually called pianofortes. Now, we're going to actually get to forte in just a minute, and maybe some of you have guessed. On screen you see the F. That's going to be forte. Forte means loud. Spoiler alert. But the reason that pianos were called pianofortes is because the keyboard instrument that came before the piano, the modern piano, only really had one dynamic possibility. And you would play it, no matter how soft or hard you hit your keys, the hammer would hit the string basically the same way, okay? When the modern day piano was invented, it came with this new ability to be able to control your dynamics. You can play softly and the hammer will hit the string softly. You play really loud and the hammer will hit the string really loud. Because that instrument could now play quietly and loudly, it was called the pianoforte, the quiet loud, okay? So that's sort of the root of what we're talking about here with dynamics with piano. Piano means quiet. And again, we can play something nice and quiet. It shouldn't be as quiet as you can. Piano is just a nice, sensitive volume. Now, we're going to move up from here. We're going to get into mezzo territory, mezzo piano. Now, mezzo, I believe in its original Italian, means half. But functionally speaking here, we don't really have to think about it in like a 50% value way. Instead, I like to think about it as like medium or moderate. So when you see an MP, that means mezzo piano, moderately quiet. You see where we're going. And of course, we can just increase our volume here. And it's easier if I show the contrast between them. So we're going to start pianissimo, then go to piano, then go to mezzo piano. Ready? Let's see if I can do this. Now piano. Now mezzo piano. Let's go to mezzo forte now. Mezzo forte means medium loud, and that's another spoiler there. Forte means loud, okay? Now, has anyone ever said, oh, that's not my forte, when describing something that they're not great at? You could think about forte as strength and playing loudly, okay? So let's get into forte. Forte, then, we're really loud, right? And if we see 2 Fs, this is the other extreme. Let me think about how you guys are seeing this video. 2 Fs is the other extreme of the 2 Ps. So pianissimo, and by the way, 3 Ps is like pianissimo or something. It's crazy, pianissimo. But we're not going to worry about that. Pianissimo, fortissimo. Fortissimo is our very loud, okay? That's going to be giving it all you got. Sorry, I had to. That was my first headbang on the piano in a live lesson. So that's our range of dynamics, okay? And I think something that's a very, very, very good practice for you guys at home is this. I always actually tell you guys that I love to try to get as much out of practice exercises as I can, right? I've said that about the 30-day challenge. You know, try different tempos, get the most out of it that you can. Well, here's another layer you can add to your practice, is practicing with dynamics. You can do it with the 30-day challenge song, because I know many of you, that's fresh in your minds and in your fingertips right now. So that could be a great one to practice along with. In fact, I'm going to play the first phrase of our whole day 30 arrangement, okay? Which by day 22, you guys already have this phrase down. So let me play it one time, kind of just straight. And then what I want to do is play it with different dynamics, and I'm going to suggest that you guys practice it this way on your own instruments at home as well. Because one, it's good to practice different dynamics. That's what we're talking about today. But also two, this is another one of those instances where you can trick yourself into practicing more than you meant to. Let's say you practice one time through the first phrase. For every one of those 6 dynamics, just one time per dynamic. Well, that's 6 extra practice times than you meant to. Let's say you do 5 times each dynamic. You just did that phrase 30 times. Okay, so I encourage you all to practice each one of these different dynamics levels with something that you're familiar with. I'll demo it with the 30-day challenge. So let's start with forte, and then I'm going to jump around. Here's mezzo piano. Here's piano. Mezzo forte. Forte. Piano. Fortissimo. Pianissimo. That's a challenge even for me, you guys. And you know, you're going to notice that when you want to get really loud, the tendency is going to be to speed up. And when you want to play very, very quiet, the tendency is going to want to be to slow down. So that's something I want you to watch out for when you're practicing as well. Now, I know I talked about expression with tempo earlier and how you don't have to keep it in metronomic time. But let's separate those two things. Right now we're talking about dynamics. And as you're practicing your dynamics, I still want you to think about even timing. We'll get into rubato and pushing and pulling the tempo in another lesson, okay? So that's dynamics, and I really think it's probably time for a wee-oo, pop quiz, all right? It's my pop quiz siren. Let's see if you guys were listening. And we're going to try something new for the pop quizzes today, okay? And then I'll get back to the chat. But here's going to be my idea for avoiding confusion with the different questions. Here's the new rules. This is question number 1. So with your answer, you have to type the number 1 and then a dash or a period or whatever. So 1 dash your answer. So fake question. This is not real. If I said, what is the 3rd scale degree in the key of C? The answer would be E. But don't just write E. You have to write 1 dash E. And if my second question later is, what do you call this note? You would write 2 dash C. Let's try that, all right? All right, here's the question. Spelling does not count against you, by the way. What do you call the dynamic marking that has 2 F's? What is the name for that dynamic marking? Remember, you have to write 1 dash, then spell it. And again, I will not take off points if I can tell that you meant to spell the right word, but you've spelled it wrong, okay? So I see S.D. Rockman wrote 1 dash E. S.D. Rockman, you were excited about that one. That was the fake question. That was the demo. So I'm going to give you guys a second here to see. And by the way, I'm looking for the first correct answer. I didn't say on that one. But we're going to let them come through, and I'm just going to play a little bit at that dynamic marking. If that gives you a hint. Okay, we got some answers coming through, and the first correct answer was Lynn Cartan. Am I saying your name right, Lynn? Is it Cartan, 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 something else? You are our first winner, And I'm going to give honorable mentions to Sarah Pickles, to Uncle Rabbit, to Carlos Lopez, SD Rockman, I got you, Dave, Team Dixon, good job everyone. And I will say that the spelling, Lynn, you also got the spelling right. We got 2 S's in there. So there we go, everyone. Good job. Now, let's go to our second pop quiz. We're going to keep it here. Now, for these answers, you're going to write 2. Lynn, I'm saying it right? Okay, good. 2 dash and then your answer for this one, okay? What does mezzo mean? I'm looking for the 3rd correct answer here, and you need to write 2 dash and then your answer. What does mezzo mean? I will accept a few different answers because I listed a few different definitions. I'm looking for the 3rd answer, 3rd correct answer. And I'll just play a little bit. I think we've had some time here. Let's see what the answers are coming in. Okay, Carlos says 2, moderately quiet. Okay, I'm going to give you a point on that one, Carlos. Well, I'm going to give you a point on it, Carlos, but I didn't say mezzo piano or mezzo forte. I said, what does mezzo mean? So you got the answer in there, but I was looking for the 3rd correct answer, so we're going to count that. And then I see Lynn with medium, and then I see Sarah Pickles with medium. I believe Sarah is our 3rd winner. Good job, quick fingers over there. Sarah Pickles, you win a free song credit. And everyone, mezzo, I would have accepted medium, moderate, or the real sort of Italian definition, which I believe is half. Any of those would have been acceptable. I'm seeing some interesting answers come through, which makes me want to explain. Yeah, so to be clear, mezzo on its own does not mean quiet or loud. It's actually not really a dynamic on its own. Think about it as something that affects the dynamic marking. Either you'll have P for piano, or you'll have an MP, a version of P. Instead of just quiet, like piano means, it would be a moderate quiet. So it affects the dynamic, but it's not a dynamic on its own. So if I said, what does mezzo piano mean? You would say moderately quiet. If I said, what does mezzo forte mean? Moderately loud. But what does mezzo mean? Just moderate, medium. Okay, good job, guys. So Sarah, you got it on that one. There will be another couple of quiz opportunities today, so let's stick around for that. But I want to get back to the chat too and make sure I didn't miss any questions from earlier before we get back in the lesson. All right. Oh, I'm seeing an expression question here. I want to get to this. Oh, Sarah Pickles first just said, I'm not on the app. Can you give it to the newest person on the app? I assume you're talking about your song credit there. So why don't I give it to the next winner? So instead of the 3rd winner, we'll take the one after you, Sarah. That would be the 4th winner. And that's Uncle Rabbit? Yes. There you go, Uncle Rabbit. Surprise. You can say thanks to Sarah Pickles for your free song credit. Sarah, I love saying your name, by the way. It will never get old. All right, so Uncle Rabbit says, wait a minute, sorry. No, I had a different question. Where is it?
No, it's Dave. That's the second question.
Wait a minute, did we get it wrong? Did I mess up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, sorry about that. Tell you what, that was our fault. So Uncle Rabbit, we're giving you one, but then who actually should have won that, Andrew?
Dave.
Dave, you win too. And you get a free song credit, and you get a free song credit. That was my bad. So Uncle Rabbit and Dave, you guys are getting them. All right, so I saw a question that I wanted to answer about expression. Byron Burt, there it is. Phil, can you discuss expression differences on low-end versus mid-range keyboards? My keyboard feels challenged on chords as I don't press at the tops easily. Okay, this is an interesting point, Byron. And it has to do with range. Specifically, when we get down in the low end down here, regardless of dynamics or expression, it can just sound really muddy down there, right? And up here, has a much different characteristic. So if I was going to play a C chord, I probably wouldn't play it the same way in the extremes that I do when I play it in the middle. Way down there doesn't sound good, so I would open that up, for example, and do it a different way. So because I would approach the ranges differently, basically across the board, not just with expression, I also would probably think about those differences while I'm working on expression. For example, I probably would not want to spend a lot of time in that super low range, first of all. So I'm not going to take my time on a really slow thing down here. I may want to use the effect of that range for what it is. It's kind of like a low bomb being dropped, and then you get up here and do something else. If I was to spend a lot of time down here, it kind of sounds like we're just in a big basement, right? But if I use it quickly for an effect as I'm sort of playing expressively, and then I'm back up here. That's kind of a quick answer for you there, but I hope that lets you see that even when you're using expression, you want to be mindful of the range of your keyboard. And so to answer your question, if you have sort of a smaller keyboard and you have a shorter range, of course you'll be a bit more limited there. But use the tools you have, and the important thing is to use the range of what you got. Most often people are just playing right here, but you got all these extra keys, okay? All right, let's see what else we got here. Any other expression-related questions? David Key asks, are the lessons going to be added to the store from the challenge? The lessons will remain in the courses tab for now, David. We're going to keep it in there because as people who join the app next month, for example, they weren't here when we will have been releasing these live like we're doing now. But we still would like for future customers to be able to go through that cycle as well, and for students to go through that same 30-day route, if you will. So it'll remain in the app, and for now I believe we're going to keep it in that Courses tab as the 30-day challenge for the entertainer. Sarah, I see you clarified. So you meant softly and delicately. Okay. So I would honestly say to you that there's likely not a ton of differences there. We're talking about just a word preference. I was actually speaking with Andrew before the lesson about a term that I'm going to introduce to you guys in a minute that actually kind of has two words that you could use interchangeably, but it basically means the same thing. Now, I would have to see the context of what you're looking at, Sarah, but to answer your question shortly, I would say that there's not really a difference functionally. If you were meant to play softly or meant to play delicately, I think that describes the same thing. You're likely not going to be playing fortissimo, right? Not even mezzo forte. Likely not even mezzo piano, right? We're going to want to get pretty low and quiet. That's what soft means to me. Delicate also means soft and quiet, but you could argue that it has an additional meaning. Perhaps delicate could also speak to the articulation. Maybe delicate feels like tiptoes, which would be kind of separated, maybe. So whereas softly doesn't necessarily speak to the articulation, it's more of just dynamics. But they're so similar, I would say, from my point of view, my opinion, that I would use them interchangeably for you. But think about the difference between pianissimo and piano as dynamic markings. They're pretty similar too, right? There's not much difference, but there is a subtle difference. So maybe there's room for interpretation with delicate to mean something more. But dynamically speaking, I would say they're the same. Good question, though. Turner Adams says, can I just watch YouTube every day? You can do whatever you want, my friend. I will not judge you. And if you're hanging out on the Playground Sessions YouTube channel, that's even better. Okay, so Uncle Rabbit says, oh, you stopped the rookie boot camp to do the 30-day challenge. Sweet, okay. Went back to where I had been stuck, and it was much better. That's awesome. What a great insight. So you were struggling on something. You stepped aside from it. You dove into something else. And then when you came back, miraculously, it was easier for you to do that. That is perfect proof that no matter what you're practicing, if you're doing something and you're sitting down to practice, it's going to help anything else that you do at the piano. You work on one song, it's going to help your scales. You work on your scales more, it's going to help you in your next song, and so on. Okay? I'm really glad to hear that. Okay, let's see here. Let's look at a couple more here. Can't wait for Fortissimo. The last habanero. I hope you were not disappointed at my Fortissimo. Okay, Lynn Carton, here's another good one. Is it easier to do dynamics on an acoustic piano than a digital one? Great question. Okay, so this can allow me to speak to the kind of differences in keyboards as well. Acoustic pianos are the real deal. The hammer itself literally is connected to the key, and it responds to how hard or soft you hit the key. And so there's a lot of different dynamics you can get out of a piano. A keyboard simulates that effect, and a really super expensive, super nice keyboard is going to have a lot of different, how do I put this? There's going to be a lot of different responses. I can play more than 6 dynamics on a really, really, really nice keyboard and on an acoustic piano. And the hammer action and everything will allow me to do that, and you could hear it in the strings. But as you start to get down into more entry-level keyboards and beginner-level keyboards, because those do tend to have a cheaper price point, they leave out a lot of some of the other features, right? And often the features that are left out are they slim down the options for volume response or velocity response. So even basic keyboards tend to have 2 or 3 dynamics. You play it quietly, it'll be quiet. Play it loud, it'll sound a little different. It'll sound like you struck it louder. That's kind of like the keyboard's way of faking the dynamic response from a piano. The Playground Sessions keyboard, our starter keyboard even, has I think 3 to 4 different dynamic levels per key. And so you definitely want some range of dynamic response in your keyboard if you want to be working on dynamics, okay? But most do, most have a few, and some will have even more. But acoustic pianos are the real thing when it comes to that. This keyboard here is the Yamaha, I think it's the P45, yeah. I know David Sides has a few keyboards. He's got the 145 or the 115.
That's what I have too.
You have the one. Andrew's got the 115 too. These are great keyboards. I mean, most of the stuff, unless you guys are playing on like little Casio toys, you're going to have some dynamic response. But to answer, no offense, Casio, but to answer your question, there is a difference, and the piano is always going to be more dynamically responsive. All right, let's move it on. All right, so, here we go. This is a follow-up here. So Charles Smith says, my keyboard has touch-sensitive setting 1 to 3. I can't really hear the difference, though. Fair enough. Yeah, 3 is a little bit more limited, but I would encourage you to try to play it as quiet as you can, or pianissimo, and then to play the same note right away, fortissimo. And I want to hear if you can hear the difference, and when you're only comparing that, when you're only looking at that. And typically what you'll find is when you hit it louder, the sound that plays is going to sound like a string that was plucked harder. It's hard to describe that sound, but I want to see if you can sense that on your keyboard. If you have 3 settings, you should. Okay. All right, guys, well, let's get back into dynamics. There's one more thing I want to talk about today. Now, we've been talking about dynamics as we talked about 6 different sort of dynamic modes you can get into. But once you're playing mezzo piano, for example, we'll just play in mezzo piano until we see another dynamic marking. Oh, it's forte. Now we got to go forte. I got to go fortissimo. Now you got to go pianissimo. Abruptly. But that's not how you're going to find dynamics in the real world, in real-world notation examples. Sometimes you will, of course. And there can be a great effect to go suddenly, quiet to loud. Whatever. That can be an interesting effect, so you may see that sometimes. But what I want to talk about now is dynamic changes over time. Or, in other words, gradually increasing or decreasing volume over a phrase of notes, as opposed to jumping up to one dynamic and staying there, and going down and staying there. So let's talk about that for a minute. I want to talk about first something called a crescendo. Now, a crescendo is the term for gradually getting louder. And in notation, you're going to see it either below or above the notes on the page or on the screen if you're in the app. And you're going to see it look like a greater than sign. Well, I got to remember, you guys are looking at me this way. Greater than sign. And it literally looks like what you're supposed to be doing with the volume. It starts small and it opens up and it gets louder as you go. That's a crescendo. And so if I was going to play a C major scale at piano volume and then back down at forte volume, that'd be one way to do it. Or we could practice a crescendo throughout that whole thing, where we start quiet and we end loud. We start piano and we end forte. It's more gradual that way and therefore more subtle, but it can be more powerful as well because you can gradually take the listener with you to where you're going dynamically. Okay? So that's a crescendo. And the flip of that would be a decrescendo, okay? That's the other way. That's where we're going to get quieter over time. Now, I mentioned earlier, Andrew and I were talking about different terms. We talked about diminuendo. Maybe some of you have heard that term as well. It's kind of another way to describe this. Gradually getting softer with your volume, okay? Gradually getting quieter. So a decrescendo. Nice, right? Now a crescendo. Decrescendo. I'm having fun over here. Now, I hope you guys will try this stuff at home too. One thing that's interesting about this lesson is that we don't have, in the current app, we don't grade dynamics in the current app. This is something that we feel is, when we're talking about expressing ourselves, part of what I talked about was dynamics, part of what I talked about was pushing and pulling the tempo. But at the end of the day, I honestly believe that there's a time and place to be playing not in front of the app. I'm not always going to just sit here and plug the app to you guys. My main job is to teach you guys how to play piano, all right? And I take that seriously. I believe in my heart that playground sessions is the best way to do it. But sometimes you also want to close the app and try stuff without the app too, because we want to get the most out of this experience. And we want to test what we're doing in the app. Can we do it without the crutch of the app? You want to try it without the app too. So this is great stuff to practice without the app. Take what you've learned in the app and then sit down and work on expressing yourself with that, including with dynamics, at least for today, especially with dynamics. And we'll get into more this month about how else you can add expression to your playing. But I want to encourage everyone to practice everything that we talked about today. Taking something that you have worked out and you've got down, maybe it's the 30-day challenge excerpt, maybe it's something from the boot camp or something else. Something that you don't have to think about to play, something you already know. And I want you to practice it at all 6 dynamic volumes that we talked about today. And then I want you to mix them up. Try forte, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, pianissimo. And then I want you to try to play the same stuff with a crescendo and with a decrescendo as well. That's going to be great, great practice for you guys. So on that note, I'd like to get into another pop quiz mode. Pop quiz! All right, you know the drill now. We're going to put a 3 and a dash because this is the 3rd question. And we're going to get into, we're going to talk dynamics. What is this question going to be? Okay. 3-answer. I'm looking for the first correct answer. Which is louder, mezzo piano or mezzo forte? First correct answer. Which one's louder? Yeah. Looking for the 3rd correct answer. I need to say 3 dash. And I said, which one's louder, mezzo piano or mezzo forte? 3rd correct answer. Let's check in. All right. 3. Oh, Sarah Pickles. Oh, you are so fast you corrected yourself, Sarah. I'm looking for the third correct answer here. I see Sarah got the first one. Byron Burt, forte was not an option, my friend. You'd be right if you said mezzo forte. So Lynn Carton has the second correct answer. That's mezzo forte. SD Rockman. SD Rockman, you are our third correct winner with mezzo forte. And I'm going to give some honorable mentions as well. Kurt Iriart. That's the first time I think I'm seeing your name. Great work. Mark Hopewell. Great work. Gail Hogue. Great work. Dave. Charlotte Ward. You got it, Char. Good job. Mezzo forte. Carlos Lopez. Good job, everyone. Okay, cool. Mark. I know what you meant, Mark. You got it. Okay, great. So that is our first lesson on expression. And just kidding, you thought we were done? Another pop quiz. I'm keeping Aiden on his toes tonight. Here's the last one, you guys. It's going to be harder, okay? Four-dash answer. Looking for the first. No, I'm not. Sorry, I lied. We're going to look for the fifth correct answer on this one. Fifth correct answer. Okay. What am I playing? A crescendo or a decrescendo? Was that a crescendo as I played my scale, or was that a decrescendo? 4- your answer. I'm looking for the fifth correct answer. Excuse me, and I'll play it one more time. Am I playing a crescendo or a decrescendo here? Looking for the fifth answer. Chad Miller, 4- answer. You're cracking us up over here. You get a free song credit. Just kidding, Chad. Okay, so I tried to trick you guys here with this one, but it doesn't look like it worked, and that makes me happy because you are on your toes. The reason I tried to trick you is because I was playing up. And sometimes people think that that means we're going up in volume maybe, or maybe it just sounds like we're going up in volume. But I attempted to play that G major scale ascending, getting quieter as I went. And you guys heard that, and you said, decrescendo. Great job. Man, it's so cool to see all these decrescendos in the chat. But we have to find the... Tom D was just trying to get in there quick. Respect. Oh, Tim Johnson, I don't see a 4 in front. Okay, so we need, I see 4- answer. 4- decrescendo. Lynn Carton, that's the first correct answer. David Key, this is the fourth question, not the fifth. So Byron Burt, 4 decrescendo. That's our third winner. Tim, you didn't put 4. Sorry, my friend. Sarah, you got it. Oh, Sarah, you got it. Dave, you got it. But Dave, I think did you win one already today, Dave? Okay, I think you did. So since I don't think Javier Paternina has won one yet, then Javier, my friend, you are going to be a free song credit winner for this number 4 pop quiz question. Great work. Good job, everyone. I'm really seeing David. David, no problem. That's fine. Hey, that's awesome that you're practicing along. By the way, how many other of you that are watching right now are actually watching in front of your instrument and are actually playing along with me? I'm curious about that. How many of you are watching like at home, not at your keyboard, and you're going to practice later, versus how many of you are actually watching at the keyboard? This will help me, actually, because as we move forward with new lessons, if I know most of you are sitting at your keyboards, I'll structure these lessons more in a way where I'll say, like, play along with me and try this. And if you're not sitting at your keyboard, I won't, right? So you can help me understand that. Let me know if you're sitting at your keyboard while you're watching these lessons. Guys, I'm excited about this month. It's Expression Month. That means we're going to be talking about expressing ourselves through music, which is super cool. And we're going to be looking at specific things, tools and tricks that will allow you to do that, okay? So we've talked about dynamics today, playing at a certain dynamic level, and we've talked about gradually increasing or decreasing our dynamic level. And I gave you some tips on how to practice that stuff. Take something you already know well, vary up the dynamics, practice it with crescendos and decrescendos, and just generally work on your touch with dynamics. You can do it on anything that you already know. It can be a scale, a song, whatever, okay? Next week, we're going to be doing another expression lesson, and you'll have to stay tuned to see what that is. I'll see you guys next week, same time. It's going to be Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time for our second expression lesson. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you soon. And this is called an augmented triad. So we got major. For dominant 7 chords, we have a major triad with a flat 7. It's very similar to what Harry showed, but it has a bit more of a bluesy feel. So